Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Gilliland. I'm one of the founding attorneys of the Legal Geeks. We're at the end of December 2023. So it's time to reflect on the year that was and the remaining time that 23 has. With me is Gabby Martin, and we don't remember the last time we recorded together. That's how crazy 2023 has been. Gabby, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a year. We were putting this together and trying to remember everything that actually took place in 2023 and wasn't some fever dream that happened from 2022 was quite a challenge for me because it feels like there's been a lot this year, but also this year has taken a long time. I don't know. But no, it's there was a lot. We got a lot of stuff this year.
Yes, this is the first podcast I'm recording in my home office that, again, got my first condo Memorial Day weekend, started moving, had emergency surgery, nearly died. That was fun. And it's just been a slow process of setting everything up. Display cases to my left,
Mhm.
bookshelves to my right, art up, including my cherished Robinson Crusoe on Mars poster. Because let's face it, that is an amazing sci-fi movie. Mwah. But let's talk about what we had. And first things first, do you have a favorite movie or show from this year? And
Oh man, that's like trying to like tell you to pick your favorite child, which is or the worst one that I hate when somebody is like, "Who's your favorite Marvel character? Who's your favorite Star Wars character?" It's like don't do that. Except with Star Wars, I will always say Padme Amidala. But in terms of this year, I think my favorite would have to be uh the series finale of Loki. That for a character that I have loved for however what 14 years now, it was just chef's kiss. It was perfect. It obviously had Tom Hiddleston's hands all over it, but it was in very very good hands. And yeah, just being able to see that finale was, I think, in so many ways, the perfect ending to that character. And I couldn't have asked. Actually, in many ways, it hit me more than the ending of Tony Stark's arc. I think it was just more impactful. Um, and I know there's probably a lot of people that are going to come after me for that, but whatever. But I just think there was a lot of reflection and things to identify with the Loki journey and coming full circle. And then I'd say a quick, close follow up is that Doctor Who is back. I am so excited. And I am so excited to see Chutigawa as the 15th Doctor. That was amazing. Um,
so yeah, there's a lot. So my top is Picard season three.
mhm.
I was a lifelong Star Trek fan. That series was a love letter that was exceptionally well done, that worked in nostalgia without being over the top. So somebody could be watching it cold and not, geek out over the references. But for people who've been lifelong fans, it's like hugging and crying. And the last 5 minutes of the penultimate episode, where we see the Enterprise D restored, it was like everything I've ever loved. Like just the music playing, the name of the song in that scenes make it so, and you can just, I mean, the composer just pulled from Next Gen and the motion picture, and it's just like it was glorious. It was just like this hug to the fans with grandpa and your parents going out to save the world one last time. It's like, yes, yes. Like I don't normally cheer at 1 a.m., but I did. Like it was rock on. Uh,
that
other, uh,
Yeah, that was exactly how I felt, not only with the Loki season series finale and, from his transition, when he says, I know the type of God I want to be, and that whole, and you see the horns and everything, and I was just screaming my head off because it was just so, and you hear the theme and you hear everything. But then I think the one that got me was watching the Christmas special, and we got a proper Christmas special, and hearing the lead up, and knowing when Ruby goes to the TARDIS and she's looking around the TARDIS and she goes in, and you know what's coming, and he says, "I'm the Doctor," and it's like, yes, yes, who is back?
He's so charming, and that's the musical number that they worked into the Christmas special. It's like nice. That was just it was fun. It was all the fun, goofy Doctor Who that people love. I I enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't. Um, the people who made Torchwood should not have made Doctor Who. Like that was
Mm.
just my, excuse me, not Torchwood. Broadchurch should not have made Doctor Who. Uh, so like there are elements from Jodie Whittaker deserved better. So let's just
Yes. Yeah.
uh,
The problem was not with Jodie Whittaker. She would have made an amazing doctor had she gotten the right material to be the doctor. Um, but yeah, Ncuti Gatwa has charisma for days. And I also love the fact that he was inspired to be an actor by David Tennant. And I can't imagine being able to do a scene where you're very intimately close with David Tennant, and then, getting to do that. And also seeing him pull that through the Christmas special, with some of his reactions was just fantastic. So I'm
well,
very excited.
the way they re-edited the Adventure in Time and Space,
Mm-hmm.
because that originally ended with Matt Smith and Hartnell.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, the way he winks, it's like, whoa, dude, like you're gonna be a lot of fun at Comic-Con. Like it just I look forward to seeing him interact with fans just because he seems
Yeah.
to be into it, to understand it. It just there's a magic feeling that's back. And I say that as someone who watched Doctor Who when it definitely was not popular. Uh, it was Friday nights at 10 p.m. Like that was not uh on a PBS station late at night. Like we're blessed in the age that we live in, because that if you told me, you know, when I showed my fifth grade class a Doctor Who episode and they were with Tom Baker and they were all bored out of their minds, that we would live in this world where it's on Disney Plus and people love it the world over.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Um, you know, Power to them.
Yeah.
So with that said, having the favorites out of the way, let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about some of the legal issues that we saw, because there's a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
so let's open the right outline for this year. And this is going to be kind of speedball, but I noticed you put a lot for Loki season 2. And
Yeah.
the question you pose is Victor Timely guilty of identity theft if he who remains, because he does stick his head into that weird device for
Yeah.
his temporal aura.
Yeah, because it's a curious question of whether, as a variant, because obviously we see that Loki has his variants, right? We see Sylvie, we see young Loki, we see all the other ones, but they're all visually different, right? Whereas the King variants, and obviously this is a question without it may not need any further speculation, as Kang is perhaps leaving the MCU based on other real life legal matters. But to ponder whether Victor Timely is guilty of identity theft, because he does take that kind of extra step pretending to be he who remains by taking his temporal aura. So I mean, I think he does, really knowingly, and he really doesn't have any lawful authority. Quoting 18 USC 1028 here, he produces an identification document, which is his temporal aura, right? So I pretty much think he'd be guilty of identity theft of He Who Remains. Although it's a little, iffy, given that there is an authoritative body that is requesting him to do this. So are they complicit in his illegal activity? Or is, he helping kind of furtherance of something? But he definitely was probably guilty of some identity theft there.
So I thought Kang was from the 30th century.
Mm-hmm.
So having a variant from the 19th really confused me because
Yeah.
it's like, so did Timely create the TVA? I mean, like, I know we get this weird chicken and the egg thing, or is it like just because there's, the difference between the 19th century to the 30th century? Is it literally just the same person or like a descendant? But then that doesn't make sense either. Um, how could a variant be from a completely different century? Because
Yeah.
you would still need the parents, the lineage, and all of that to work out.
I mean, I think honestly, they perhaps maybe got all of this Kang stuff. It's something I think that perhaps works in comics as far as, stretched out over time, where you're not necessarily tracking the kind of the variants and their various storylines. And it's not necessarily separated as you had the case with the Loki variants, where they were clearly like different, because I think, we think of, the word variant is like, this is a different version of me, right? It's somebody that exists in a, maybe looks similar and, has similar features or powers or whatever. But I think, they kind of, it doesn't necessarily correlate to a good, like, movie storyline cinematically, television wise. So I think they are probably actually ended up with a happy little accident, that they can kind of scrap the storyline. Although I have seen some good casting suggestions should they choose to move forward with Kang. One, being John Boyega. But I think perhaps the one that at least got a chuckle out of me, that I think would never happen, but would be absolutely fantastic, would be to bring Terrence Howard back as King the Conqueror. And I think that would just honestly be one of those, that would be a payoff and would be absolutely hilarious. So I'd be here for that, but they should just scrap it and go with Doctor Doom and not think of Kang ever again.
I saw Howard's suggestion. I also saw LeVar Burton. Like there's been a bunch of casting suggestions. If they keep that, I mean, they're probably figuring out what do we do, because granted, I haven't seen the contract that the actor had, but I would bet there's a good conduct clause, and the fact it took a conviction for them to fire him immediately to
Yeah.
it's like my brother was, oh, we should have been fired immediately. I said, that would have cost another lawsuit. Because you can't, I mean, you need cause if it's because I'm confident that the contract would have said, like, you can't hire somebody else to play this character but me.
Yeah.
And it,
And yeah, I'm sure there was also probably a clause in there, or he was probably put on notice from the time he was arrested. And they've been trying to come up all the wonderful, shout out to the whole legal department at Marvel, hardworking lawyers at Marvel and Disney, which I should give them a shout out, because they had my favorite legal document this year, which involved, perhaps not the Marvel side of folks. I don't know how their legal department is structured over there. It is, the legal document, which, all the various lawsuits against the state of Florida and Ron DeSantis, where they actually threw in the rule of perpetuities and brought rule of perpetuities into the general vernacular and into common, mainstream media publications, which, as a law student, and I'm sure all law students, all lawyers across the country who have ever had to deal with the rule of perpetuities truly appreciated that. So shout out to the lawyers at Disney for doing that little laugh for all of us.
Well, that and working in the King's Clause
Yeah.
as well. It's like, well done, you
Yeah.
guys. I mean, again, there's some great TikToks about uh, calling them lawyer ears, like, doing a spin on Imagineers, and
Yep.
just like regular lawyers, but more expensive. And they earned that big retainer. Well
They
done.
did. They definitely did.
I could imagine that war room meeting. So what do we got? And just, I got an idea. And
Let's do the rule against perpetuity.
tell me more.
Honestly, I would imagine that when you're filing, I don't want to call them frivolous because they're not, but like, you're in more of a kind of strategical, tactical legal battle where it's not about the one particular case. It's about, kind of a larger chess game, so to speak. Um, you have much more creative freedom as a lawyer. And you can throw crazy ideas out like that. So I think it's been probably I'm sure they disagree with me. A fun year, at least in part for the lawyers at Disney.
Yeah, I mean, that idea could have come up at 2 a.m. in a very stressful, night at work.
Yeah. I would love it if that was some legal intern's suggestion. That would make me very happy. Of some like 3L legal intern at Disney. Like, I know, I got it. Why don't we try the rule against perpetuities? They mentioned that in class. That'd be amazing. I want to know. I know that the general counsel is, or one of the general counsels for Disney is Horatio Gutierrez, and it'd be really fun to learn from him. Who actually came up with that idea? We should know the inside secrets.
Yeah, well, that would be pretty awesome.
That would be amazing.
So there's our Loki issues. We had Dial of Destiny, and it was
Yeah.
great. It's lots of legal issues with Indiana Jones. In fact, we did a panel at Comic-Con on Indiana Jones that was standing room only. It rocked. And we did cover all the movies, from you can't take a horse onto the subway, but ironically the fine wasn't that bad. And yeah, there's other issues with when Indy's working for the government versus not. And so again, very, very complicated. But the idea of with this one, I thought it was a great send-off for the character. And Harrison Ford just, I mean, again, as a Gen X male, my aunt took me to see the original. Like, she loves Indy. She, again, she loved this movie as well. So seeing people, who've loved the character for over 40 years just go like, this was fantastic. Good. But with the dial, and it's important to know about plate tectonics and continental drift. Our evil Nazi who wanted to go back to kill Hitler so he could install himself does raise the issue of a paradox. And as soon as we saw Archimedes' corpse with the watch on, it's like, oh, that's somebody's. We're about to find out who. And then we did. It's like, and Indy knew as soon as he saw, like, oh no.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it was it was, I don't think it was like the greatest movie, but it certainly was better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I think it was just a very efficient send-off to the character. Perhaps one of my favorite little details about it, was everything was there's so much that was so good about it, but I think the building of the theme, as a music kind of nerd, I loved how it took time and to build, and you don't hear the full kind of sweeping music till later in the film. And that the first time, because you have the whole horse chase, no Indy theme, which is normally when you'd hear it, and you don't hear it until John Rhys Davies' character gives him the kind of initial speech about wanting to go back to the adventures and all of that. And that's when you start hearing it for the first time. And that's perhaps my favorite little bit. And of course, seeing Marion, which, you know, that was a huge payoff at the end.
Well, then, and she was Marion. I mean, like, there was parts of Crystal Skull when she did not act like Marion. And it, like, Crystal Skull is about 2/3 of a good movie. Like, it takes it needed another rewrite. Like, there were problems, but it almost stuck the landing, but missed. And I don't mind aliens, because in the 50s, we had lots of alien stories. So, like, that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. It's a cool concept that there would be aliens under, like, the you know, pyramids. Like, that's cool. It's like you said, it doesn't stick the landing. Cool concept, doesn't stick it.
No, and we have Indy grieving, like, his son died in the video. And
which was a very convenient way to get rid of Shia LaBeouf.
Yes, it was, but as soon as, like, we're like panning through his apartment and you see the folded flag, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like, that we just don't give those out. Like, there's a reason. And so it had meaning. And but for legal issues in it, okay, like, if there was an all points bulletin out for Indy, getting on an airplane would be super difficult. I'm like, that's
like near impossible.
And unless, communication just isn't moving that fast to the airport, to the airlines.
I mean, it's the 60s, but, like, you would think that it's the same. It's not like he went to a different state. He's in the same state. And, like, you also have the issue of these are federal agents that are working, unfortunately, with the Nazis. But they have the power to and the authority to put out kind of a larger bulletin than just the New York City police. Like, so he definitely would not have been able to get on an airplane in any easy fashion.
No, that was hard. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to highlight, I am pro punching a Nazi. Again, if it's 1940s, maybe post-operation paperclip, depending on the situation, but definitely during the 40s, punch him. I am very pro melting Nazi. I'm all for the wrath of God, burning those bastards into oblivion. That doesn't bother me. You should learn not to be a Nazi. So, because the character's destiny, and they got what was coming to them with giant spears. Oops. So, we got all that. Now, how's Indy get out of the murder charges? Well, I think either prosecutorial discretion or a very robust probable cause hearing, where you have a very active defense attorney just knocking everything down. And now, granted, the FBI agents in question, I think, are dead by the time that this rolls around. So
yeah, I think they're all dead. One was a legit Nazi. One seemed less of a Nazi, that was just, like, there and got roped into it, and then she got shot for her troubles. So yeah, I think James Mangold has explained this, because this is probably the biggest plot hole in the movie, is how Indy's able to get back home and not be hung up on murder charges, like, not in in the clink. And I think what he mentioned, which is, as you mentioned, Josh, prosecutorial discretion, is the reason why he needs to probably commit another crime, which is bringing the dial back with him. But having the dial, being able to explain to authorities what happened, what went down, that he really saved the day, and that he wasn't the person that actually shot all these people, that it was just really bad, Nazi folks. And, so that's kind of the explanation for that. But in a sense, Indy did have to commit one crime to get out of being guilty of another.
I would also toss in the Nixon administration would make this go away. Like, they would, Oh, we're gonna prosecute a hero. This will end badly for us after we're doing our victory lap for the moon landing. So let's pump the brakes. Let's
Yeah.
not highlight we just helped a Nazi.
Yeah.
Because by the late 70s, Von Braun was no longer in fashion. And whoops. Uh, but hey, we got to the moon first. So Barbie came out while I was hospitalized.
Oh
And I haven't,
no.
yeah, so same with Oppenheimer. So I haven't seen either of those because I was uh incapacitated. I lost August and haven't felt like watching them on the TV set,
Hmm.
just because, okay, I did watch the musical number for Ken, like that.
But you have to watch the whole thing because I will say that Barbie is probably my top movie of the year.
It,
And I know that sounds very cliche, and that's probably at the top of everybody's list is Barbie, but it really, really is a good movie, and it just hits so many points emotionally. There's not a wasted scene in that movie at all, and everybody is performing at their best. Most notably, Ryan Gosling, who does a fantastic job, and I think should be RDJ for best actor or best supporting actor. So if he doesn't, I will be sad, but we'll see.
the videos on Max, and because like they have all of the different making of and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I watched I'm Just Ken, and I was very enamored with it and laughing hysterically. So I was just like, well done. I don't know all the backstory here, but I'm Ken enough. Bravo. Like that's
Yeah, it's it's the best. It's and then the fact that they released additional versions of I'm Just Ken, and they released a Christmas version, and I think it's a testament to, again, with Ryan Gosling, you're not sure how much is improvised and how much is written for him, but it all does seem very legitimate and improvised on his behalf. But he has a great line in the Christmas music video where he puts on his sunglasses, um, and he says, "Everyone, the world can hear Ken's voice, but only Barbie can see Ken's eyes."
They just rock
He's
on.
just perfect. He needs to get the Oscar. And I'm sorry to RDJ. I liked Oppenheimer. I just don't think it's as good as Barbie. And I'm not saying that because like it's just not as good as Barbie.
Yeah.
There's some stuff, no shame to Christopher Nolan, that could have been trimmed from Oppenheimer. So
Well, Nolan likes to go long,
yeah.
so we know that. But I plan to watch both. I would just I don't think I'm not going to go rent a theater to watch them, but I need to have a friend with a big enough TV set to enjoy the experience
Yeah.
fully. Because again, they they're masterworks, and it's like they drove people to the movies.
Yeah. I think the greatest thing that I saw was seeing so many people, like we have a movie theater near our house, and just driving by and seeing folks dressed up in pink to go see a movie made me so freaking happy. And people in all ages, all walks of life, like it just several men wearing pink shirts with their families, like it was fantastic to see. Like it was a moment, and it was great.
It brought people together, which is what every movie aspires to be. No one wants. I'm going to make this esoteric art house that no one wants to go to except for, really? Like that's your plan? Like, of course not. Like people want to connect. Part of the movie going experience is to have a community with people who like similar things. It's why we do Comic-Con, and we're happy to see others, you
Yeah.
know. So all of that's fantastic. Like this is why we have it, and I'm glad to see people loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw hysterical TikToks of like one was two dudes, both in like pink shirts with
Mhm.
orange shorts, running into each other at the movie theater, go like, yeah, I'm here to see Oppenheimer. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
no,
think it's definitely, and like you said, it's part of that movie going experience, which actually my favorite movie going experience was not Barbie, although it was my top movie of the year. It was actually going to see Lawrence of Arabia in 70 millimeter for the first time. And so I encourage anyone to go check out cinemas or theaters in their area. Like we have some here that show have 70 millimeter capabilities, 35 millimeter capabilities. Go see it. And it was an audience of 300 people who all loved movies. And when I tell you the amount of joy I got when Peter O'Toole's name came on screen and people were clapping and cheering and humming the Lawrence of Arabia theme during the intermission, best experience, best experience. So definitely encourage, go watch movies like that, classics, go watch them in that kind of setting.
how did people respond to the overture?
It was, people were clapping too.
Okay, because
Like the
that's
scene with when he blows out the match, people were clapping. But I can't, but when people saw like Peter, like the title card and then Peter O'Toole's name, people were cheering.
that's beautiful. I mean, the out here there are the Fathom events that the
Yeah.
theater has with special screenings of classic movies or anniversaries. I would I missed that, and I would have gone if I had paid closer attention. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so I watched this at home. This is honor among
Same.
themes. I played D&D as a kid. That was the mid-80s. So like I am very out of practice. So
Mhm.
I didn't connect with it. I'm not saying I disliked it. I just didn't connect with it. Well, a lot of my friends who play D&D on a regular basis really connected with this.
Mm.
And one of them said, well, don't you play D&D? I said, not since Reagan was president. That was the fourth grade. A lot's happened since then. And like, I'm not opposed to it. I didn't, I enjoyed it. And I'm like, again, we have a parole hearing that takes place in
Mhm.
it, and they just has to like, well, you could have at least tried arguing first before doing your jailbreak.
Yeah.
But did you, and again, honor amongst thieves, so we have a lot of thieving taking place.
Yes. There's a lot of thieving, there's a lot of crimes that take place, obviously. And it's one of those, obviously, for the good of the people. So is it really like that bad? Do they, I think that's the question with a lot of these stories is like, well, they're doing it for the good. So like, are they really liable in the end because it's for the good? Like, and I think I'm not like, I know of D&D. I have friends who play D&D, but I don't personally. I know enough to get like have general knowledge of it. But I thought it was fantastic, and I thought it was an absolute riot of a movie. And another one of those like Barbie that could have been quite hokey of a movie and really had kind of some depth and weight to it. And but I think all of these folks are at the very least liable for the amount of destruction they cause. Maybe not the murders, maybe not some of the other issues that the thievery that happens. There's a little bit of conversion, and like then it all ends up, and as long as the things are returned to the folks. But the the actual destruction, and of course there's a whole issue of the abandonment of post and desertion, and what that means. So definitely a good one, a good movie whether you like D&D or not.
Good analysis. I agree it was fun. I just watched it and was like, I didn't connect with it.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed it, and which is also okay. Uh, Don't have to love everything. So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, one of the best films of the year.
Mhm.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack with this movie. And with Spider-Man, a lot of it comes down to the duty to rescue. Like, you don't have a duty to go out and rescue others. And like, that's what,
But you do have a duty to rescue if you create the situation that is putting people in danger, which I think perhaps most of the canon events, they don't have a duty to rescue because you're not putting Uncle Ben or whoever it is in danger. But with the event that takes place when, and I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse in a minute, but you know, Miles does create some issues, and the fact that the spider people are kind of keeping others away from rescuing, you do have a duty in that sense. So in that case, I mean, morally I side with more Miles regardless of canon events. But I think in that case Miles was in the right. You know, even though it caused the destruction of the universe, or that particular universe, I think that, you know, he was in the right because he did have a bit of a duty of care in that situation.
well, that, and this is where we're going to get into quantum mechanics, and we don't know how this imaginary world works.
We're lawyers, not scientists.
I know, so this is what we'll call them in and we will figure it out and make the argument of, can we argue this in good faith?
Yeah.
That we can do. But just from the story of Spider-Man is a kid trying to do the right thing. And yeah, that's initially born out of guilt and has the theme that Spider-Man, whether it's Peter Parker or Miles, is always going to get the short end of the stick, that they can't be happy. And I don't agree with that. Like, it does make the character human. It's part of the reason why he's endured as long and is one of Marvel's most popular character, if not the most popular, because people understand being a nerdy kid and the struggles of growing up. Or when we see middle-aged Peter, this, you know, just life has adventures and complexity. But, you know, we do see, you know, one version of Peter married and happy with a kid, showing that, okay, Aunt May died, but, you know, life is going on and they're heading in the right direction. So the idea of, you know, there's an association of spider people actively working to not save an individual, it just, like, rubs me the wrong way. And just as it rubbed Miles the wrong way, like, no. And also telling him, like, oh, that spider wasn't meant for you. Again, I say, no, you know, like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the duty to rescue element, but more importantly, we like the heroes being heroes, not trying to cause others harm. Because
Mhm.
you need this unnecessary character building.
Yeah.
The captain has to die. It's like, okay, so I'm always supposed to have loss. I'm always supposed to have massive failings where someone doesn't make it. You know, the mindset of with great power comes great responsibility is you go out and help people, which Miles is doing. So can't wait for the third one.
Mhm.
What they did with Gwen in this was exceptional. I mean, it was almost her movie because it begins and ends with her.
Mhm. Although I will say I made the mistake of watching this movie, which was primarily Gwen's movie, with all the abstracts and the kind of lo-fi music. I will say I love this movie. I didn't like it as much as Into the Spider-Verse. I thought that was more fast-paced. I wasn't a fan of the kind of lo-fi music soundtrack of this, particularly because I made the mistake of going to a later showing in the evening and being tired. I'm just generally being lulled into a lovely kind of doze with all the very calming music and not a lot of explosions that were happening on screen. So it is a good movie to fall into dreamland too.
Yeah.
I would have loved a little bit more of the score and all of that of Into the Spider-Verse. So hopefully we'll get that with Beyond the Spider-Verse. So we'll see.
Well, it's the middle story, and it's a long movie. So again, this
Mhm.
is their two towers,
Yeah.
and it just, it took time. And I mean, I figured out the twist quick. Was like, that's not his planet. Like that's
Yeah.
like that's the wrong number. Like so this is bad. So
Yeah.
and but anyway, I thought it was a beautiful film. Now, I did not see Mission Impossible. I
What?
I can say that my aunt didn't like it, and for her not to like a Mission,
Oh no.
yeah, I was like, whoa, and a word about how much I love my aunt. Like in the magic year of 1966, she was a kid. That's the year when we had Star Trek, Batman, and the Monkeys come out.
Hmm.
She was a geek girl at the beginning, like in that golden age of TV. Her
Hmm.
first concert was the Monkeys.
Nice.
She texted my brother and I while watching Endgame on Disney Plus.
Hmm.
Like, not the first viewing. She'd saw it in the theater. Okay, but texting, is it normal to cry during the portal scene when all the heroes arrive? It's like, yes,
Yes. Yes. 100%.
you did nothing wrong. Like,
100%.
this is why we love you. So, like, so anywho, for her not to like a Mission Impossible movie, it's like, oh no, that's a red flag because she loves
Yeah.
this stuff.
I will say I think the problem is that I think some folks had. I liked it. I didn't, I'd say I don't want to I reserve judgment on this movie until part 2 comes out. I think it'll be a more complete story once part 2 comes out. But I think it did a lot. It has all the kind of typical Mission Impossible beats. I think in reading about it, I think there were some lines that were taken out, not by direction of the director, but higher ups that, were like, this doesn't roll with our movie, or, we think that's too far. So I think there were some emotional beats that were taken out that I think should have been kept in. But I think it was a great movie. And I think one of the things is, spoiler alert, Josh, sorry, the villain in the movie, which is the entity, I think is a very timely villain. It's kind of AI basically. And it brings up this question by talking about it in terms of like, it's something that government agencies either want to control or limit. Really brings up the question of, would a government, which one, would have the authority to limit the entity, would have the entity, for those who haven't watched Mission Impossible, again, spoiler alert. I mean, it comes up in the first kind of 10 minutes of the movie, so it's not that big of a spoiler alert, but is this kind of AI consciousness computer thing, kind of more than AI or kind of a computer system. And so it begs the question, who would have the authority to limit it? And in doing some research, this is actually a question that is on the top of mind as we see the development of AI, the continued growth of AI, not just of governments. Obviously, there's been congressional hearings about what to do with AI. Obviously, as you and I know, Josh, the laws are always kind of 20 years behind, so it'll probably be a minute. We'll obviously see a court case with AI, not using fake cases. We'll see an actual court case involving the legality of AI before we see any sort of legislation on it. But the UN is actually creating an advisory body to address AI global governance. Because obviously AI is something that spans continents. It's something that has no borders, which is kind of the question in this movie. The entity has no borders. And actually, folks have posed the creation of a world tech organization or world technology organization, to kind of address the growing global nature and kind of need for oversight of on a global scale of technology and AI. So very, very timely. And of course, in this movie, as we've seen throughout the Mission Impossible movies, Ethan Hunt is moving farther and farther away from being an actual sanctioned government agent. He's going more and more off the rails, not in terms of being bad, but just like his legal authority is kind of hanging on by a thread, if it's actually there at all. So I think he would definitely be on the hook for all the destruction he causes, including to the famed Spanish Steps, which they did not actually destroy because they were not actually allowed to shoot on parts of them, but they were to all the destruction he caused to Rome, and then the train in the Austrian Alps. So definitely he's racking up a pretty big bill for property damage throughout these films. So just like there is a cost for how much the US government has spent to save Matt Damon over the years, I'm sure that the Mission Impossible movie should add up a tally of how much Ethan Hunt owes various countries around the world for all the destruction he has caused, not sanctioned by the US government throughout the years.
It'd be uninsurable.
It would definitely be uninsurable.
So it's funny about the AI issue. So I spoke at the Eastern District Conference for the federal courts in California and the Eastern District. Did 2 panels. One of their keynotes that they had was on AI and ChatGPT, and it was terrifying because AI can be, we're on the way to an extinction level event with AI within a decade. So like, again, maybe we don't need to worry about long-term planning, but it's like, or we could try to stop it. But they, like the way AI, at the speed it functions, they had a comparison video to see it of like of a camera moving at super slow motion in the New York subway, and like people look like just grass not moving, and you might be able to see like one arm on someone slowly like move, and it's just like, oh, that's terrifying. So like we cannot mentally comprehend how quickly a chat GPT or a generative AI product is scanning everything. Now, the current lawsuits that are taking place on basically copyright issues, those will be interesting to watch. I mean, I take the view that they're violating copyright, so have at them. And, like that could be a way to put the brakes on this, because it's, there are the news organizations that are saying like, okay, pay us a license fee. And then the others who are suing, and it's like, go get them, boys. Yeah, but it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Because again, Michael Cohen just got in trouble because he made up a case, or his generative AI made up a case. It's like, that's another high profile case where there was a whoopsie deal. I mean, like the first guys who ended up on the front page of the New York Times the wrong way learned about, it's like it hallucinated and made up a case.
Yeah.
Multiple cases.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I was at a Homeland Security conference in July, and same thing. They're talking about how these bad actors, how fast the system can learn, and how not just the typical things we think of AI, of Chat GPT and all of this stuff, but also with social media, and how they can be used to spread misinformation, create misinformation campaigns, disinformation campaigns, all of that, and the speed at which they spread and the speed at which they can learn, and how they're learning to be less like bots than we typically think of the bots of the kind of spammy like text. And it's not the case anymore. They're learning more and more and more. They are called deep learning models. So it's quite fascinating. And then legal departments having to deal with as we see more and more AI integrated into software, so with Zoom, with various social media platforms, having to develop policy around it, and get comfortable with the fact that AI is here, and we have to develop policies around it. So it's here to stay, and it's up to us human beings to help limit and use it in a safe and good way.
Yeah, there's a lot that I think about with it. There were those who thought, the radio or the TV was going to be a passing fad, and they were very wrong. There are those who thought Google Glass would be the way of the future. No one has that anymore.
I mean, it's kind of back. It's kind of back with the metaverse and Ray-Bans, Josh. So we'll see.
It's I think Google Glass was too expensive. I think that was part of the problem.
I think it
But
was also too ugly. I don't think anybody wanted one of those things very science fiction-y, just sitting here in front of your eye line.
there are a lot of problems with the rollout, but good things to watch. So, pardon me, back to Doctor Who with specifically the giggle. So, what authority does the Doctor have to authorize the use of the laser beam? He's still a member of UNIT. And this goes back to the third Doctor, my favorite, John Pertwee. And, so he's still a member of UNIT, even though his tenure there is spanned by decades, because he's not stuck on Earth anymore with a TARDIS locked to the planet. I think that's part of it. He could still have authority that way. If not, the planet's coming apart at the seams. People are probably like, let's try this, because there's rioting in the streets, and we get to the issue that you raised of, can UNIT force people to wear the Z-Decks? And they show the news commentator that looks like a conservative news site with, no one can make me do this, a very anti-vax type mindset. So can we force people to get vaccinations? Yeah, we can. Have we? Yes, we have. Are people trying to actively bring back polio? Yes, they are. And so anyway, Doctor saves the day, or doctors with a game of catch. It was brilliant. So, and Neil Patrick.
And everyone got spice up your life stuck in their head. I know I certainly did. I was like, I haven't heard that song in 15 years, and now it's stuck in my head. I can't, unsee it. So, and obviously he has the authority of being president of Earth, but also that's an international agreement. That's not necessarily an election. Obviously titles necessarily don't matter. As long as you're vested with authority by somebody, it is an international agreement organized by UNIT. So yeah, I guess that gives him the authority to make that decision. But you would think that for such a large body he's overseeing of peoples, there's 7 billion people on the earth these days, that there would have to be some more consensus than just some treaty signed behind closed doors that's given one person all of the power to make a decision about space lasers. Although I would totally vote for the Doctor. So,
there are times when you just have to act quickly, and then the other half of this is being able to give up power afterwards. This is when we've gone to war as a country, and we've had to ramp up. Turning down the dial afterwards is always the hard part, and we've done it well in some situations, and we've done it poorly in others. And on the flip side, we're still here. So it's hey, it worked. but it's like knowing when to shut down martial law.
Hmm.
And that, often turns on like, has the emergency passed? And there were cases in Hawaii post Pearl Harbor where they went like, okay, it's like 2 years have gone by. It's like, okay, we can stop this now. Like it's like we're past this, and
Yeah.
things have stabilized and local government can function again. Like we can turn this off.
Well, we saw that even during COVID, the activation of a lot of emergency powers of executive branches. And I know in particular in Connecticut, that became an issue of much debate of when, obviously, unfortunately, nobody in peacetime sits there in the legislature defining, well, this is exactly what defines an emergency, right? It's like this. Nobody does that, and especially nobody predicting a global pandemic. And so when does the emergency end? When do you shut off those powers? And the problem is that, then because all of these things are interconnected and interwoven, the declaration of emergency is tied to funding. And if you turn off the declaration, then the funding stops, and it's tied to this thing and that thing. And, then all of these things become interconnected, and it's, where does the, kind of where are lines drawn, and all of that, and how it's not necessarily as quickly as flipping off a switch. It's something that perhaps needs to be done in stages or degrees or, what have you. So yeah, it's something that's a little interesting. So hopefully that international agreement has some more detail in it, and the good lawyers at UNIT sat there for a good while working on the language of that agreement, giving the doctor, president of the earth, powers.
and that I would guess that was hammered out after the Stolen Earth with the Oscar Hauser key, with like,
Mhm.
hey, three of us, in order to prevent mass suffering, we can blow up the planet. And it's like, really? I mean, like, that's the plan? Like, that's the safe gap? First, why don't we trust the doctor? That seems like that seems to be a smarter play, because so you don't have the guy in the bunker deciding it's time to turn the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, nice deep Doctor Who cuts. All right, so I haven't seen the Marvels yet. There was some craziness at work when that came out, and
I have not seen it either. It is one of those things that, goes to all the amount of content we get these days. It's a lot.
yeah, there was a lot happening. I was getting ready for trial. There was a lot happening, and I didn't. Sure, I can go to the movies now and not worry about trial prep. No, like it didn't go that way, and
Mhm.
want to see it. Uh, so yeah, Mandalorian season 3. So I liked this season a lot, and uh, seeing the characters together is good. I enjoyed seeing Bo-Katan's story arc, which was good. I don't think the dark saber is a good way to govern an entire planet. Like, is there some unwritten constitution? Like, how's that supposed to work?
Mhm.
With how do you govern that way? So it's taking the Arthurian legend and going to a degree that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I would say this season kind of fell short for me. I mean, I'm obviously a huge Pedro Pascal fan, and it kind of suffered from him, being torn between that and The Last of Us. But yeah, I think if they were gonna make kind of a the argument as well, it's The Mandalorian and it's not necessarily Din Djarin's show, which I find totally fair. I'm not a big Bo-Katan fan. I'm not like I don't I think I like the idea of having Katie Stackhoff play her in live action, but it all kind of fell flat for me. Um and yeah, there were good moments, but definitely not my favorite of the seasons.
And where I had problems with were missed opportunities, because season two, was all about getting Grogu to Luke Scott to the Jedi,
Hmm.
and that turned out to be Luke. Because the season two finale is amazing, and just Skywalker coming in there and rolling through an army, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's like beautiful. Well, you can't just undo that and have the kid leave. Like that's problematic. I would have preferred something where Mando and Luke are teaming up together in some way, like learning how to use the dark saber and like learning from each other. There could have been opportunities there that because both cultures need some reforms, and
Yeah.
both can learn, because there are elements from the Jedi that would be helpful on the Mandalorian culture, and there are elements from the Mandalorian culture like that would be very helpful for Jedi, namely being together, like being a community is what gives them strength, opposed to the Jedi no attachments. Like there was, it felt like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think it suffered from that story. I still hold that, all as much as the kind of facial recreation of young Mark Hamill was quite cool. I think it suffered from like the guy that did the body acting, for lack of a better word, um, looked enough like him that like they should have just gone with the kid and like they could have gotten that kid, I'm sure, for season three. But you're right. I think that kind of hard pivot, and then the fact that it really seemed to almost become a cliche of itself, where they immediately visit Carl Weathers, and now he has an even more fancy getup, and he's like Mando, and he gives him his mission, and it just seems like, okay, is this gonna, like, I'm here for every episode, every season of Mandalorian starting with Carl Weathers in a more extravagant outfit, just walking out and being like Mando. That would be perfect. I'd be here for it. It'd be hilarious. But it doesn't seem the type of show that Mandalorian was trying to be. So I like it had a hard pivot, like you said, and didn't seem to go in the natural trajectory that it was building to in season two, and it just kind of went in a weird way.
Yeah, and
So
it starts with Book of Boba Fett. I mean, because the best episode of Book of Boba Fett doesn't have Boba Fett in it, and it's
yeah.
like the best hours of Star Wars ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but again, that's like culture shock in order to reunite the Mandalorian and Grogu,
Yeah.
and it just was like, ah. So there were elements of the season that I liked, but there were other parts that felt weird because it felt like a giant side quest. And
Yeah, that I think was the suffering from it. And then like the and I think also, I know this is probably going to sound bad, but like the monsters of or monsters, characters, villains, whatever you creatures of season three, I thought it was like almost like a kid had doodled them and was like, oh, let's put an alligator and a thing together and like Star Wars creature. Like it didn't seem like you have Sarlacc and you have like all these other, and it seemed like too like real life. Like I'm like, this is not my Star Wars. So I think, but I agree with you. I think it really felt like a whole side quest, and it didn't feel like a Mandalorian like season.
yeah, and there were things that they did that were creative, like seeing the two different sects, those who
Mm-hmm.
are willing to take off the helmets, and the children of the watch who don't, and all of them learning to live together. Like that was cool. Like so there were, like, I don't want to say like it was just a giant missed opportunity, but there was just, I wish it'd been different. Like
Yeah.
is the message. I wish it'd been a little different with what they had done. And I will always be here for it. I mean, I have my dark saber on the wall. So I have the Kenobi of the Vader. I pre-ordered the Sabine.
Nice.
The dark saber's there. I have a Count Dooku, and I have a Kenobi Episode One. And I really want to go get the Kanan one that's now at Disneyland. So
Hmm. Speaking of Sabine, thoughts on Ahsoka?
I
because we
loved
did
it.
get Ahsoka.
I loved it. I thought that was very pure Star Wars. It was a lot of world building.
Hmm.
The it was interesting talking to my brother about it, who didn't watch Clone Wars or Rebels. He watched the first episode, hated Sabine, and turned it off, and decided not to watch it again until they got through select Clone Wars and Rebels episodes. And that's shocked me.
I mean, I'm kind of with your brother in some ways because I was not a fan of live action Sabine. Like, no disrespect to the actress, I think she's lovely. I just think she did not have the charisma that the other actors had. I think the first two episodes also kind of suffered from some directorial, misgivings. Like, it just didn't seem to be as well directed as some of the later episodes. Certainly, Rosario Dawson's eyes did not seem to be as open in the first two episodes. It was very bizarre. They seemed to like open up. I was like, does she have like tape? Like, it was just very weird. But certainly after those first two episodes, when it kind of got its hit its stride type of thing, and I say that as somebody who also did not watch much of the Clone Wars or Rebels. I was kind of more of a casual fan of those. But I loved the later episodes. I thought it was a shame to have lost, I'm going to butcher his name,
Ray
um,
Stevenson.
Ray Stevenson, because he was absolutely engaging. I wanted, especially his ending, I wanted to learn more. Every time he was on screen, I was like glued to the screen because he was just so engaging, and having a character that was that kind of had the respect of the Jedi Order and what it was, and the kind of principles of the Jedi, but was like they kind of messed up. Like they weren't what they thought they were. And I need to go a new path, but I also don't want to be on the dark side. So I'm going to find this new path. That was fascinating to me. He was like this gray Jedi. It was very cool. And The episodes, as a huge, Josh, I'm a huge prequels fan. I absolutely loved Hayden Christensen getting his due, getting to come back, getting to do his scenes, and just the Clone Wars flashbacks were chef's kiss. That fight scene, I recommend heavily going to watch on YouTube. There is a cut of the fight scene with Battle of the Heroes, which I think makes it so much more better, or so much better, I should say. It is.
Gabby, no, don't do that.
I'm just so excited. I was absolutely thrilled to see him back in action. And really, I feel like he got let down by Kenobi. Was not as much as I love Ewan McGregor, as much as I love Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was really let down by the Kenobi series. And I think this gave Hayden Christensen his proper due, to really step back fully into the character of Anakin, not just Darth Vader. And that scene when he's walking away and it flashes to Darth Vader, I lost my mind. To me, that is second to the hallway scene in Rogue One. Like, that was incredible. Like, absolutely, with the fog, with the smoke, like just absolutely perfect. And I think he was able to come back and kind of put the seal on the character, and hopefully him and Ahmad Best getting their appreciation that they deserve, that I have had for them for 20 odd years now, which I feel really old saying that, but that I've had for them for a long time, and them finally getting their due, it just makes me so happy.
He was exceptional. Interviews with him are amazing. The rehearsals is like he's really good with the lightsaber. Like,
He sits there, and it's so funny to hear him on press like junkets, because he has kids now, he's a dad, And he
He's
sits there
thoughtful.
and trains his kids with the lightsaber, and yeah, that's he still has the flip. He still has the flip, and it's just
I,
so cool.
I would love to like hang out and have tacos or burgers. Like it would be neat just to hang out with the dude. Um, Speaking of Kenobi, he was at Fan Expo in San Francisco, and so my friend Becky and her daughter, we got our picture with him. We also did that with Mark Hamill, and he's good. So Hamill was good because like like you go in and you're greeted,
Mhm,
and Hamill said like, "Hey, nice shirt" to Sam,
mhm.
and all three of us said thank you because we were all wearing Star Wars shirts. So, but again, like you were just very enamored that like there was Hamill.
Yeah.
McGregor, as you walk in, shook everyone's hand and said like it's like super disarming, super charming. And and then like it's like his arms are around everyone for the
Yeah.
picture. It's like, oh, you're good, dude. Like
Yeah.
you make everyone feel special. The and you disarm everyone right at the beginning of the picture with like the handshake and making everyone feel warm and like embraced. And it's just like it's on the wall now. Like I was stunned with how good he is, because like a lot of photo ops could just be like a grip and grin, but it's like you respect everyone who's here and you make them feel loved. Like that's and like you're going to do like that for I don't know 2,000, 3,000 people. Like that's
Yeah.
and
And it's not like he's just done Star Wars. Like he's he's Ewan McGregor, like he's done everything, and it's like he still sits there. And the thing too, I will say that I really appreciate is the fact that Hayden Christensen and Ahmad Best not only came back, but the amount of respect and love they have for their characters after all they were put through. I mean, the fact that Ahmad Best got death threats, sure Hayden Christensen got death threats, like that they love and care for these characters, that is a testament. And I hope I get to meet both of them at some point, because that is a testament of their character, that they came back and they still love and respect this character,
they love the fans.
and
Like
they love the fans
yeah,
who did not love them for a good while.
no, it's how to say this. I blame Lucas for direction and storytelling in the prequels. Like there was some very bad decisions made, and that's not the fault of the actors.
Yeah.
So on that note, love Bad Batch and look forward to season 3. There was a lot of heart in this season, and it was excellent storytelling. I would like we're we're running long on time, so if we just
We're running through them at the last minute.
thoughts on Bad Batch.
I have not watched Bad Batch or any of the Star Trek. It's been a crazy year for me, so it's been mostly the few things here or there that I could get to watch. But and also, we have Godzilla -1 on the list. I am so looking forward to this one. I have not seen it yet. I definitely want to catch it while it's still in theaters, because I have heard nothing but good things. I know, Josh, you said it was Oscar worthy. I've heard that it's just an absolute, amazing, almost war documentary or war movie. And it really takes home the idea of Godzilla standing in for kind of the destruction that was caused in World War II. So I'm super excited to see it. And then yeah, haven't seen Picard either.
So -1 is beautiful. It you run the risk with a Japanese version of the end of World War II of coming across as nationalistic for like, forget about our war crimes. We did nothing wrong. It's like, no, no, you guys were the bad guys. No, you don't get away with that. And we have all these tortured veterans who went through living hell. And like, so there's no glorification of what they did. They're
Mm-hmm.
all miserable. And you see firebomb Tokyo. And one of the big issues is this, failed kamikaze pilot. I mean, he didn't go kamikaze. Goes home. His parents are dead. His parents' message to them was, come home alive. He does. And he ends up in a found family, like bumps into this woman who has a baby, not her baby. Parents were killed in the firebombing, and like
Mhm.
they all end up living together. And that raises the issue of war orphans. So, like, just doing some quick research, post World War II, there were over 100,000, maybe 120,000 war orphans in Japan, and they built orphanages for 12,000. Not good numbers. And so, what do you do with, like, you don't normally go like, oh, come live with me.
Here's a baby.
Yeah, no, like we have red flags. There's all kinds of problems with that. Like, we don't want that conduct. On the flip side, if your city's been firebombed and people have burned to death and you find a child, the reaction should not be, whoa, not mine. I'm walking away now. Wrong answer as well. What kind of human being are you? Like, you keep the kid alive until you can figure out, do you have family? Like, where
Yeah.
should, in post World War II, that's going to be really hard with an infant that doesn't know how to talk. Like, because there's like there's no ID,
Mhm.
no DNA testing that you can do. So it's like, like in that extreme situation, lawyers will figure out the plan. Like, it's like, we're glad you kept the kid alive. Good. We're now going to figure out what happens next. Whether
Yeah.
it's whether it's foster care, whether it's an orphanage. If you want to raise the kid, we'll figure that one out too. That's what lawyers do. And it's also what the nature of government should be doing with, we're not going to leave a child to die. We're just
Mhm.
not. So, like, let's just see, we live in California. Like, if there was a massive earthquake, or if there's a giant blizzard that takes out Massachusetts, and you got kids without parents now, you don't leave them to die. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna figure this out. Like, you might be well, my house is standing. Like, here's the air mattress. I will feed you until we figure out what to do next. And
Yeah. And I mean, you even see that, in the Doctor Who episode, The Church on Ruby Road, is the church takes her in. She doesn't stay there. She's transferred to the state, and the government, whatever the kind of corresponding entity is over there. But, she um they have to, there's obviously a period of time between when the state comes and picks her up and when she's there. So yeah, they cared for her in the meantime, like that. You don't leave a child sitting out in the cold. Like, it's just not the thing to do at all. So, and like you said, the lawyers and the government will figure it out, who's going where, what's happening. But the priority is life and well-being, and then everything else gets figured out. Custody, all of that gets figured out later in courts. But somebody has to actually be alive to be in custody of another person.
I don't think any court's going to go like, you were wrong to take that orphan whose parents were just vaporized and
Yeah,
keep them
how
alive.
dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you?
yeah, I would love that case, because like, it was just like, okay, thank you. I get to be wrapped in the American flag now and go to town on you and make you villain number one in
Yeah.
every Disney movie ever to be made. Let's do
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
You save the kid.
Yeah.
And with -1, there isn't a functional government left in Japan. So like they're figuring out how to eat. Like, so again, you could take Godzilla out of the movie and it's still a very compelling human drama. And it absolutely crushes the idea that you can't have human characters and a compelling human story in a Godzilla movie,
Mhm.
which is, despite the fact Legendary has completely fumbled the ball on that in every movie except Kong Skull
Skull
Island.
Island. Yep.
And the anime, Kong,
Mhm.
had a human story. The Monarch series has a compelling human story that Godzilla is sometimes in. So you can do it. So for those who just think like audiences just want to see the giant monkey and lizard punch each other, there's more to us. Like, so you can tell the story about PTSD and survivor's guilt and taking care of a kid and make people cry leaving the theater. Like, do that. Like if
Yeah.
you make a Godzilla movie where you have that kind of reaction,
Hmm.
good. Like, there were moments in this film where, like, there's one big scene where I yelled, no. Yeah, like it was just that well done of like,
Hmm.
oh, I actually care.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it can be done. Like it's you just don't freaking, we don't need to see giant monsters like swinging at each other. That's not like what we're interested anymore. And I think, as we enter this like post-COVID landscape, like that's what people want to see nowadays. They don't, I think, want kind of cheap like films. I think that's why the Marvel movies haven't been as successful. Like people don't just want to see like, oh, like fluffy action. Like people want to see heart. They want to see emotion. I think that's why series like Ted Lasso do so well, is because people want to see people that are happy. They don't want to see we've moved out of this kind of post 9/11 like gritty born series, that the kind of dark like hero, like we don't need that. And the like Snyderverse, like sorry Rebel Moon, that like we don't need the Snyderverse anymore. Like we've come to a new age. So I think hopefully studios will see that and see that that's kind of the story that folks are looking for. That's why Barbie did well. That's why Oppenheimer did well. Like people want to see stories about people with human emotions.
and there are a lot of ways to tell those stories because sometimes the atomic fire breathing lizard can tell that story very well.
Mm-hmm.
So lean into that, uh, producers. Again, like Star Trek at the end of the day is about humanity. And it's like some of the big things from Picard, without spoiling it for you, deal with humanity. Like those are the key things that's like save the day and like are the deeper meaning throughout the entire series of it's like family and love and agape and caring about people.
Yeah.
All of that works. Like uh it's why people were cheering during like fan screenings of it. So having something where people give a damn
Yeah.
is very important.
That's why Who is I'm happy Who is back, because it's like that's the essence of the Doctor. He says it very well, is that he cherishes humanity, but we're also kind of the worst of each other. But that's kind of the essence of Doctor Who, is to be magical and fantastical, but also see the best in humanity. And I think, that was why, like to me, the Loki season finale or series finale resonated so much, was because he had to sacrifice at the end. I tell you, when I cried when he the idea of the glorious purpose and that whole conversation with Mobius, and really turning it, what glorious purpose is, on its head. And it was just this kind of growing up, and it's like, yeah, like you have these kind of crazy dreams that you think of and whatever, but like sometimes it comes about in the way you're not expecting, and like sometimes you have to sacrifice things and sit there at the end of time and watch over time to become what you're meant to be. So
It's there were a lot of great series this year.
mhm.
And again, we live in a blessed time. What we just talked about, that's a lot.
Yeah, and we
There's
didn't cover all of it.
no, no, and God knows what we missed. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that movie. Have you cried over a CGI raccoon? Like I have. Like
Yeah.
when it looked like Star-Lord was going to die, I was upset. Like, like it was.
I mean, not a huge Chris Pratt fan, so I was like, meh. I was more sad about the raccoon
His,
than about Chris Pratt eating it. Sorry.
we all have our own tastes. However, it's just like emotionally drawn in. Like, and they did that very well. So with that, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Curious to hear what you enjoyed the most about 2023. And wherever you are, stay safe, stay healthy, And we will see you in 2024.